We saw a movie. What movie did we see?
The Hobbit.
We saw The
Unexpected
Hobbit.
Journey.
An Unexpected Journey. We saw Hobbit, Unexpected Journey. And how was it?
It was pretty good.
It was pretty
I liked
good.
It was okay.
It was long.
Yes, it was.
About 3 hours long.
It's as long as you expect a book to be, I'd say.
Well,
seeing that it's supposed to be 3 movies now.
Well, it's a 2-hour, 45-minute movie, right? And it is only the first third of the book that they have filmed. So yeah, it's gonna be basically a 9-hour series.
9-hour series. That's a marathon for all you folks at home.
And
almost as long
keep
as
in mind,
Harry Potter.
this is, not only is it just the first third of the book, it is basically just the first third of the movie too.
Yes.
The movie doesn't end in any way, really at all. So
it is an ending means they're literally standing on a cliff and they leave you hanging.
Right.
It is the epitome
of cliffhanger.
They literally are on a cliff, aren't they? That's hilarious. No, but yeah. So the thing is that if you sat down and you read The Hobbit, okay,
like some of us have,
it would take you less time than it would to watch these 3 movies back to back when it's all said and done.
It's true. This is true.
And so
I don't know. I'm not a speed reader like you are. So it might,
I mean,
maybe
5
7
hours.
hours.
I mean,
5 or
5
7
hours
okay.
is a pretty good, standard for
a good morning would be enough to read this book.
But yeah, so that's probably going to be. Now, the thing is, I love this stuff. My favorite character in the movie was a character that was not in the book. My favorite character is Radagast the Brown, who is mentioned in The Lord of the Rings, but never appears in any of the books.
Right.
So, and that's partly because, Sylvester McCoy's performance is just hilarious. And, so, but long story short, if you were expecting, just, a short anything, abandon all hope here.
Go home.
You will
give away your ticket and go home.
The movie's I think 56 on Metacritic or something like that. So
also,
it's
some people don't get the fact. Some people do not like the fact that it's 3 movies, which is not really surprising because they're obviously just trying to mirror The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
in that fact, by making it 3 movies.
To be fair, the books, the Hobbit actually plot-wise does mirror The Lord of the Rings a lot in terms of dramatic beats.
And the movie really is in the book really is kind of in 3 parts.
Yeah.
There's 3 distinct things that happen. They overcome certain obstacles, kind of in 3 chunks. So it made a lot of sense to me.
Now the movie itself is really interesting if you like to watch a lot of British television. Mm-hmm. Because basically, you have Watson, okay, who's the Hobbit.
John Watson,
John Watson from Sherlock, and he meets up with Gandalf, and Gandalf brings in a bunch of dwarves, among which are Guy of Gisborne from Robin Hood, John Mitchell from Being Human, and Dr. Jekyll from Jekyll. And they're all going on a quest so that they can reclaim their gold from Sherlock Holmes from Sherlock. And along the way, they meet the Doctor. So it's a casting-wise, it was a very interesting thing. They also run into the host of QI, who is I forgot his name all of a sudden. Stephen Fry. Yeah. Stephen Fry, who plays the Goblin King. So, if you watch a lot of BBC, this is going to be a really interesting experience for you. What did you think of the movie exactly, Ryan? In terms of, just as a movie. We can get into the adaptation in a little bit.
So, I've seen it twice now.
Yeah.
We saw it midnight, and then I went and saw it in IMAX. And so I've been able to absorb the foreground story and then everything background wise and just the small details you miss the first time you go around seeing it. I thought it did the story quite a bit of justice, considering that they have no room to leave anything out, and the stuff they put in I actually liked.
Yeah.
I wasn't bothered by it at all. The necromancer scene freaked me out. You only see him for a split second, but they made him like scary.
Really? I didn't find him very scary. To be honest.
He creeped me out a little bit. I think it's when he opened his mouth. That's what the part that got me.
Yeah. No, Benedict Cumberbatch, don't eat me!
Don't eat me!
But let's. All right, so I guess we're gonna move straight into adaptation territory here. Here's the thing: the one thing I did not want, one thing that I actually think the Hobbit as a book has over Lord of the Rings. Whether you like the Hobbit better, you like Lord of the Rings better. One thing that is better about the Hobbit is that everything is much more succinct. Everything, it's a very simple story. There isn't a lot of irrelevant details, in the periphery. It's a very straightforward quest, and and so it's much more cohesive as a story than Lord of the Rings is.
It's not super hard to figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
most of it is, considering the fact that the story is from Bilbo's point of view for the most part.
Yeah,
everything's having to be explained to him.
Right. That's the thing. That's one of the major things about The Hobbit is that the reason all this stuff wasn't in there is because you only get to see the things that Bilbo gets to see.
Right.
Yeah.
The White Council scene was very cool.
Yeah. Again, something Bilbo would have never seen.
Right.
Or had any real understanding of if he had seen it.
Now,
here's the thing though. This movie was clearly, Peter Jackson and his team clearly preferred Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
To The Hobbit.
Recycled a lot of the music.
Well, not just that, but just plot-wise. They clearly wanted The Hobbit to be more complex than it actually was.
They made Hobbit into the Fellowship, and I'm willing to bet the Desolation of Smaug is going to be very Two Towers-ish.
Yeah.
With some kind of climactic battle at the end.
Which would make sense if they kill Smaug at the end.
And then it's going to harken to... it's going to harken to a bigger battle coming up next.
Well, if you think about it, they've got the, you've got Fangorn, which is very similar to Mirkwood.
Yeah.
So they're going to go in a forest, and they're going to be walking through a forest, and they're going to meet forest creatures. And
giant spiders.
Plot-wise, these movies are actually going to seem much closer to Lord of the Rings than you may have even noticed when you read the book. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. They bring in all this stuff, like they're trying to fight the necromancer and all this stuff that wasn't actually in the book, but is mentioned in notes that Tolkien kept. And they put all that stuff in the movie, and it really does drag the running time. I mean,
I thought the necromancer was in the book.
He's mentioned in the book. You don't actually get any... basically, towards the end, when they say, "Hey, Gandalf, where were you? At such and such a point," and he's like, "I was off fighting the necromancer." That's basically what happens.
So is Gandalf going to deal with the necromancer by himself?
No, he does it with the White Council, the entire White Council. So he's there with presumably he fought it with Saruman and Radagast and the other two wizards.
But in the movie, he mentions that he doesn't even remember the other two wizards' names.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know if they're going to show
and
up.
they replaced the two of them with
Galadriel
and Elrond.
I'd be very surprised if I saw Galadriel going out and fighting, ring raids
Also,
and stuff.
I thought there were 5 wizards.
There are.
But how come Gandalf... Oh, okay, sorry. I forgot about because he never mentions the other two names, so that...
so you kind of forgot
they're
about
both blue, though, aren't they?
Yeah, there's 2 blue lizards.
They're the lower level wizards.
2 blue lizards.
So wizard.
The running time of the film is padded out, much like this review. And so if you really like The Hobbit, if you're like me who actually enjoyed The Hobbit more than Lord of the Rings, you may not like this as much as you may have Lord of the Rings. One of the things about this movie is they try to inject a lot of import into a lot of the things that happen. When they go and they get captured by the goblins, it's just bad luck in the book. They just happen to be captured by the goblins. Whereas throughout the movie, they're being constantly pursued by goblins.
No,
there's a
they're
group
being
of
consumed.
goblins.
They're being pursued by orcs.
Orcs, yeah. Well, I mean, orcs and goblins are it's a fuzzy line.
No,
between
they
those two.
they are distinguished in the book though, but like not necessarily.
They're
but-
more distinguished in the films than they are in the books. Actually.
Yeah, that is true.
The
but
line is a lot fuzzier
because
for the books.
in fact, they call when they're in Moria, they call the goblins orcs.
Yeah,
Specifically, Legolas does.
yeah.
Because orcs can't do the whole thing of crawling on the ceiling and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. Well, see, the thing is about
Oh, also, what's the white orc's name?
Azog.
I'm pretty sure Azog was dead already in the book.
Yes, from what I understand, I didn't pay that close of attention, but I'm pretty sure Azog was already dead. Who they do fight in the book at the end, when they're outside the Lonely Mountain, they have the Battle of the Five Armies. That's Bolg, Azog's son. From what I went back and I read, because obviously that's not the sort of thing you would pick up on if you were reading the book most of the time. Like, oh, that's Bolg, Azog's son. No, what you remember from the book is they fought a bunch of goblins. Yeah, and so Azog the Goblin is someone who actually has a vendetta against Thorin and his company because Thorin cut off his arm.
Right.
And defeated him at this battle. And so that's part of what they do, where they inject the film with a kind of overarching.
They add increased drama.
Yeah, they make everything means more in the film than they did in the book, and that's not necessarily a good thing. You sometimes an adventure story doesn't need that through line that a lot of films have. It's something that they did with. That's something that was done very poorly in, for instance, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. They wanted to introduce a through line into that book, and it was a horrible adaptation as a result. They wanted, because they tied everything in again with a villain that didn't exist in the book. Mm-hmm. And that you're treading very shaky ground when you start doing stuff like that.
No, they did it well.
If you were going to do something like that, this is how you need to do it, because in the very least in the book, they do fight a lot of goblins. There are a lot of goblins involved.
There are a ton of goblins.
So if you're going to introduce a core villain and just have them be some goblin, that's fine. Because that's what that it makes perfect sense.
Okay. As someone that's never read the book, what was your opinion?
I really liked it. I mean, it was easy to follow along, like not knowing the storyline. You don't have to actually have background information on on the story. You can actually just don't really have to, what's the word, like think about,
right,
be really like,
and to be completely honest too,
be
the story
completely
moves.
tuned in.
It's a long move, but the story moves pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one point where I think the story drags, which is actually when they're getting chased by the goblins right before they get to Rivendell. That I was this close to checking my watch when that was going on, because that was a really weird situation where you got Radagast running on his things. You've got this big Scooby-Doo chase scene going on.
Hiding behind rocks and
hiding behind rocks and running around and trying to escape. And I'm like, geez, Peter Jackson really likes to add in chase scenes with dwarves for some reason.
Yeah, he did
the same thing in the Two
Towers.
Towers.
Yeah, he basically tried to recreate the scene from the Two Towers. It looked like it was the exact same place too. But it was instead not the Gap of Rohan.
And that was one of the worst parts of the Two Towers, was that scene and what it led to, with Aragorn going over this cliff. Basically what happens in the Two Towers is they're fighting a bunch of wargs. There are these orcs and they're coming out on these giant wolves. They're fighting these giant wolves. One of the wargs takes him over the cliff. He falls on the cliff. He's laying in a riverbed. He wakes up. He goes back and joins the rest of them. Completely pointless scene. Never happened in the book.
Speaking of pointless scenes, though it was in the book, the mountain giants was complete. I was bored during that part. I was like, why is this was like extended cut material?
Yeah. Well, the thing about the mountain giants is in the book, though they're in the book, they are not a plot point in the book.
They tried to make them a plot point in this.
They're part of what makes the storm so scary, and they're part of what makes them go into the cave. But they're like, it's a roller coaster ride. That's one thing. Everything that happens in this movie is far more. There's a lot more like flips and like falls and crashing into things than there was in the book. Now, granted, it's not as much fun to describe something in a book as it is to watch something on film, something like that. But yeah, so there's a lot more acrobatic type things in the film. But I think we kind of cut you off, didn't we? We're just very opinionated about this sort of thing.
Well, we got a little bit long, so everybody gets what's the final say? Like 4 out of.
I kind of want to hear what Michelle
rate
had
it
to
1
say.
out of 5.
You want to
For
rate
each
1 out of
of
5?
us?
1 out of 5.
1 being the worst, 5 being the best.
Yes.
Probably a 4. I just give it a 4 because it took so long.
I
Like
would
about
give it-
4 hours worth. Like not knowing about the book. I don't know what's
Yeah.
in the book and what was in the movie and what was left out. But just giving, I mean, I really liked it. Kind of fell asleep during one part, but I mean, it was just, I mean, it's really good, but I wish they could have made it shorter. Don't
They
you
really
think?
could have, yes.
Not to being 3 hours.
When I was told that they were going to make 3 films, I was assuming like 3,
2 hours.
maybe 2 hour,
At most.
probably hour and a half films.
Right.
Just to be, I mean, if you wanted to give them a lot of time, maybe hour 45 minutes, But no, they're 3 3-hour films. It's a 9-hour series.
Jeez.
Ouch. I mean, for The Hobbit, not a lot happens in The Hobbit. Let's be honest.
Well, you can't read as fast as you can tell a story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the thing. A film
And it
automatically condenses the
it
running time.
wouldn't be Tolkien film if we didn't have Vista pans of New Zealand.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. That there's a much more. They epicify it to a certain extent.
But
and
there's less. It's less Vista panning and
Yeah.
over helicopter shots than the Fellowship, for sure.
Yeah.
Fellowship is basically 1/4 of them flying in a helicopter, watching the Fellowship walk about.
Which was necessary for the film. I think it was a good.
They're on a
idea.
grand journey, so you gotta have some long bits to play the Fellowship song multiple times. So
Anyway.
what's your
Rating.
I would give it 3.5 stars.
3.5 stars?
I think that it really even adding in the stuff with the necromancer, even adding in all the things that you wanted to add in, it was still too long. Like there were scenes that could just be cut out of here. You wouldn't have lost any plot
right?
from any part of it. That like that chase scene. Like I was saying, that chase scene was pointless. I mean, the thing with the rock giants, pointless.
Even if it was in the book, you can cut it.
Well,
you could've cut it out.
but the stuff that happened wasn't in the book. The rock
Right.
giants were there, but they
Yes.
didn't do anything.
Yeah, they were just doing their own thing.
They
and,
were fighting each other like off to
Yeah,
the side.
they
somewhere.
weren't on the rock.
Yeah, they
giants.
weren't on the rock giants. The rock giants weren't actually crashing into.
It was like the, I mean, that scene reminded me of the Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Like,
Yeah.
them
That's the
actually
thing.
punching each
Actually,
other.
having the rock giants fight each other, great. That's in the book. It's important to establishing the sort of fantasy setting, so to speak. It gives you an idea of what this world is like that they live in.
Which is nuts. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's got so many random things in it.
But it's like a 5-minute roller
Scene.
coaster ride trying to avoid these rock giants, which didn't need to be there.
It could be cut down to
It
like
could have been
2
cut down.
minutes.
It
It
could
was-
1 minute.
no,
What
2 minutes.
it- what
It
that
could have been
was-
cut down to
that
30
was-
seconds.
Yeah,
Rock
30.
giants, right in the cave, go.
That
You
was
know?
that was extended cut stuff. And
Yeah.
to be completely honest, I understand why they'd put that kind of stuff in because they wanted to have some kind of space fillers. So that helped somewhat, but in the end, a lot of it wasn't needed. So for my final say, I'm gonna give the film a 3.5, just because it really felt long. By the time they came running out of the Misty Mountains, I was like, are we almost done? Because
Yeah.
it felt like I'd just been sitting there forever. I was like, okay, I'm
And it
ready.
was
I'm ready to take
freezing.
my break until the next movie comes out.
And we all wanted to see the dragon.
We all wanted to see the
That's
dragon.
the thing about this movie is that the dragon is the central conflict. You never see the dragon in this movie except for you see his eye.
Well, I like that because that was good. That was good.
No. If you're gonna split it in 3 films, fine.
No, that
Yeah,
was good filming. That was good filming. Was keeping the main villain kind of shrouded in secret of what he looks like, because they did the same thing in Cloverfield. You see like a bit of it.
No,
here,
that.
a bit of
See,
it
what
there,
I'm saying
and then
though
it
is
finally
that you
come
don't
out.
actually get that payoff in this film. That's
But
the thing.
that's okay, because
Right.
he has a whole film dedicated to him.
Right.
The whole second film.
All I'm saying though is that this could have been one film. These 3 films could have been one film, and you would have gotten that payoff at the end of the film.
No, I think it'd still be at least 2 films. I think there's just if it was all one film, story would have progressed so quickly. I think it would just be just a lot more difficult to follow.
Will you agree with me on this? It didn't need to be 3 3-hour films.
Yes, I think it should have been maybe 2 1 and 45-minute films, and then 1 maybe 2.5-hour film for the last one.
I'd say for the entire series, whatever they did, 4 hours would have been plenty.
And to be I'm still kind of a little nervous about the last film, because to be completely honest, not a whole lot happens other than they defeat.
After Smaug is killed.
Yeah, they win the battle of the 5 armies, and then they go home.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Well, there's also a lot of conflict. There's a lot of conflict in there about Bilbo taking the Arkenstone and all that. And,
Anyways, so I guess our Nerd Cube rating for this movie is 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Is that the average?
Average.
Yeah. I guess that's our average, is a 3.5.
Well, 3.5 is what you and I gave it.
And then I gave it 4, so it would be medium.
That's the average.
So anyway.
You gave it a 3.
Anywho.
Oh, no, I gave it 3.5.
Oh, okay.
Anywho.
3.75.
Sorry.
We're gonna go. So
wait, hold on. So we want to know what you rate the film and your thoughts on the film. So leave a comment below, right there, and just let us know what you think. So.
Wait, this is gonna be on YouTube? Yeah. So below.
So.
I don't know.
Adios.